Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Jackie Hune, Manager of Exhibits here at NACE International. This webinar will be posted on the NACE website under Corrosion 2014 Exhibitor tab, the ROI Center. This webinar is called Secrets of the Aisles. Also listed here, you can access the first webinar we had held on January 7th, Driving Qualified Booth Traffic. So I would like to share just a few little quick updates on NACE Corrosion 2014 with you. As of today, we have 415 companies exhibiting and over 72,200 net square feet sold. Okay, now I will turn it over to Jefferson Davis, America's leading exhibitor consultant.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. And again, thank you to everybody for logging into this webcast. Today's topic really is one of the most important topics in exhibiting success, secrets of the aisles. No matter how big and pretty your booth is, no matter where you're located on the show floor, no matter how great your products or your services are, it's going to be what your exhibit staff does in that short window of opportunity that they get with show attendees and booth visitors that's going to ultimately determine your success, not only at Corrosion, but at every show you do. So it's really cool to be exhibiting at a show like Corrosion where they care enough about us as exhibitors to put on this type of a program to help us succeed. So make sure you get your workbook, and let's go ahead and get started here. Some of you are probably familiar with me. I've been around the trade show game going on 28 years now. Like all of you, I'm an avid exhibitor, been involved in over 200 shows. I live and breathe shows. You ever want to talk trade shows, you got questions about anything, you can access my email here. I'm also on the Corrosion Exhibitor Success and ROI Center in the Ask the Trade Show Expert email. So anytime, questions you got, we're here for one reason, to help you succeed. So let's start off with a quick poll. When you think about all the things that go into a successful exhibit, I want you to kind of come from the heart here and let me know which of these do you feel most impacts the success of your exhibit. You'll see the poll come up on your screen here. One second. Okay, there you go. So you got 5 choices up there. Whatever you feel to be the most determining factor that's going to impact whether you succeed at a trade show or not. I'll give you just a moment to do this. You got about 60% of you have voted. You're doing a nice job. Thanks for your feedback on this. We're close to 80%. All right, let me show you the results here. They're pretty evenly split amongst the first 4. %10 of us felt it was the location. 10% felt it was how big, the size and scope of our exhibit. 10% felt it was the reputation of our company, and 10% of us felt product service quality. 60% of you felt it was a booth staff. I think all these things can play a role. But when you think about that trade shows are about face-to-face contact, it's going to really come down to your staff. Again, all these things can play a role, but you can have a big, pretty booth. You can have great product services. Your company can have a really good reputation in the marketplace. But if it's a point of contact with a potential visitor, the experience is not positive and doesn't meet their expectations or their needs, none of those other things will matter. So your booth staff is going to play a really key role. Okay, I apologize. I think we were having a screen issue there. So let's talk about staffing then. We just asked the major question, how important is the booth staff? And 60% of us agree that it is the most important factor. And so some of the things we're going to talk to today is in what makes a great staffer and how you go about selecting them. And do you have structure? Do you have process in place for selecting? And then what do you do in the days and the weeks leading up to showtime to communicate? Are you doing anything to train and prepare them to be effective in this environment? And what are you doing when you get to the show to manage staff activity, kind of guide them toward outcomes? And finally, has your booth staff ever received any skills training in how to be effective in this environment? These are some of the issues that we're going to talk about in today's webcast. So, here comes a couple pictures. I was at a show doing E3, which is an exhibiting effectiveness evaluation. I'm standing there evaluating an exhibit, and I hear somebody snore. And I turn around, and this gentleman's sitting in his booth sleeping. I'll guarantee you after the show, he went to the show organizer and told him that it was a terrible show, and he probably didn't get any leads. There was another example of a exhibitor sleeping in the booth. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone on this webcast does this, but you'd be amazed the exhibit staff behaviors that we see on trade show floors. We've done almost 10,000 evaluations where we physically stood in front of exhibits, and oftentimes booth staffers are making behavioral and communication errors that are causing people to pass their booth, not notice it. And so your staff is going to play a key role. I truly believe that the difference between your show ending up as an investment where you get an ROI or an expense where you just spend the money and leave it on the show floor is going to come down to what your exhibit staff is doing or not doing, the people working your booth. So let's talk about buying decisions here. In every major purchase, there are 5 major buying decisions that the customer makes en route to making the final decision. The first buying decision is your people. So they're asking questions. Do I like you? Do I trust you? Am I comfortable with you? Will I open up and communicate with you? Basically, are you the kind of people that I not only would interact with, but would ultimately do business with? So you can see that in the sales process or the buying process that buyers are making judgments about our staff that are impacting their perceptions of our company, products, and influencing whether or not they ultimately end up doing business with us. Then they move to the company and they kind of go, okay, who's your company and what do you do? And if I were to talk to 5 or 10 of your customers, what would they tell me? And out of all the companies that are out there that market to what you market, why is your company a good choice? Why are you the match for me? And then the third buying decision is the product or the service. And so they're looking at what is it, what are the facts, the features, the benefits, how does it work, what makes it work at all, what makes it better than the competition, why is your product or your service the best overall choice for me? And then once they've gone through the product, then they move to the money issues. And they're looking at things like price, cost of acquisition, cost of ownership, financing, justification, terms. They're looking at the money issues. And then finally, in the 5th decision, they're moving to the time to buy, the time to make the decision. Now, here's the thing, okay? The gravitational pull at a trade show, someone walks near your booth and up into your exhibit, is to start talking product or service. And too often, we're not doing a good enough job of getting our people sold and our company properly positioned in the mind of the attendee. So what we want to do is kind of slow this down a little bit and bring some structure to how we interact at a trade show, knowing that they're going to make very quick judgments based on their interaction with our people, and they're going to make a decision whether or not they want to engage or pay attention to us based on our company. And the product or the service is the actual third thing that we want to talk about during the interaction. So when all 5 of these decisions are made in your favor, you win the business. If any of these 5 decisions do not get made in your favor, you're probably going to lose the business. Okay, so you can see how getting your people and your company and your product, getting this stuff right, can make a huge difference in your sales process. So let's talk about attendees, trade show attendees, visitors, the things that they're looking for. What do they want? What do they expect? What do they need from us as exhibitors? Well, number one, they want our staff to be accessible and available. Worst thing they can do is walk up to the booth and see 3 or 4 of your people talking to one another with their backs to the aisles. Next, approachable. They don't want to feel intimidated. They don't want sales pressure. They want to see people in the booth that are kind of looking and acting like they're there to help people in a non-aggressive manner. Third, polite, courteous, considerate, kind people. Professional. Okay, that, you know, they want professional behaviors, they want professional engagement, professional treatment in the booth. Fifth, helpful. They don't want to wait long. When they get near your exhibit, if they enter and they're not engaged within a minute to a minute and a half, a lot of them are going to leave. And when they leave, they may never come back to your booth. Knowledgeable. Your booth staff has got to know their stuff. Okay, there's a little BS meter that's in the mind of the trade show attendee, and when they're asking our booth staff questions about our company, product, services, they're assessing how credible and how knowledgeable the staff is. Number 7, brevity. You got to understand that time and fatigue and information overload, these are the enemies of the barriers to effectively communicating in a booth. Write this phrase down when it comes to talking company, product, service. Less is more. So we've got to be able to make our key messaging concisely, persuasively, interactively. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. You know, there's an old saying, I think Zig Ziglar said it, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And Stephen Covey, in his great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 1, seek first to understand. So they want you to take a moment to understand who they are and why they're visiting your booth and what they're hoping to accomplish in this short time together in your booth. Number 9, they want choices. They want choices of how to interact with your products, with your messaging, with your information. They're looking for choices in the booth. They don't want to be kind of pushed into a certain pattern, if you will. Number 10, they want follow-up. The average attendee will only stop and cross the carpet line of about 26 to 31 booths. If they visit your booth at all, odds are they're looking for follow-up. And we got to make sure that we're doing a good job with follow-up. So you might want to think about these 10 expectations, these needs, these wants of the attendee, and ask yourself, how well do you feel that your exhibit staff is addressing these? You do these 10 things well, and you win the attention, you win the interest, you ultimately win the heart, mind, and the business of the attendee. So let's make sure that we're doing these 10 things. Some key insights that we've picked up over the years on exhibit staffing. Number 1, the environment is completely different. How we interact out in the field when we're at somebody's plant, operation, facility, or office, and how we interact in the exhibit are 2 completely different worlds. Write these differences down I mentioned. Time. We got a short interaction. Second, fatigue on your staff's part and the visitor's part. Information overload. When the visitor hits your booth, you have to assume that their minds are completely at the point of information overload. Competitive presence. You know, your competition's right across the aisle, right down the hall. And all of these things make communicating in this environment challenging. They make it different. Okay? And the second thing is that almost 9 out of 10 booth staffers have never had a single hour of skills training in how to do this. And this forces them to make behavioral mistakes and communication errors. And these mistakes and errors limit your booth traffic, limit the quantity and quality of leads you get, and can ultimately hurt the brand identity of your company in the marketplace. Okay, so your people are going to make or break it. The strategy has to be best people forward. You don't put John in the booth because John happens to live, 40 minutes from the convention center. You put John in the booth because John is the right and best person that you could have in that booth. You got to remember that the buyers are making judgments about your company based on the people they interact with. Best people forward. Okay, and if you've never done any form of professional exhibiting skills training, I really suggest you look into it. This webinar is going to give you a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and this is a really good starting point. But for some of us, we're going to need to go deeper and get some physical hands-on training with our team. Again, your booth staff is going to make or break it. Okay, so here's an exercise for you. I want to give you a tool to kind of get your booth staff to wake up and smell the concrete, if you will. I'm going to give you a way to calculate what you're investing to put a person on the floor. So take your total show budget, or what you think your total show spend on corrosion is going to be. Write that down. Then divide it by the number of booth staff that you're going to send to the show that will be in that booth on an average hour. In my example, it's 4. $7,500 is what I'm investing to have that person go stand in my booth. And often that does not include travel and entertainment, which usually doesn't even show up on the show budget. Then divide it by the number of exhibiting hours in the show, and you have got your cost per staffer per hour. So what does this mean? What should you do with this? Well, first thing I would do is make sure that all my booth staffers knew that for every hour they're standing in the exhibit, my company's investing $395 in cold hard cash. And that doesn't include salary and benefits. And again, that may or may not include the travel and entertainment expense. So we're making a big investment to be here. So this is not the time to sit down here and with your cell phone in one hand texting and a sandwich in the other hand. Okay, at $395 an hour, I want you on your feet, face-to-face, toe-to-toe, belly-to-belly, with as many potential buyers as you can for every single hour you're in the booth. Okay, so there's a big investment that we're making here, and our staff needs to know that. I've seen way too many booth staffers that look and act like they do not want to be in the exhibit. And if you want to know the death knell for trade shows, there it is. Have booth staffers who don't know why they're there, don't have goals, don't have roles, and are looking and acting like they really don't want to be there. You send me 4 of those staffers, I will send you a failing exhibiting program. Okay, you send me another type of staffer, which I'll show you, and I'll send you a winning exhibiting program. So what makes a great booth staffer? Like if I could, like RoboCop, that movie is coming out right now. Like if I could have robo booth staffers and have just the best in class, what are the attributes? How would I build that staffer? Well, number one, positive attitude. Here's a phrase: they love to exhibit, and it shows. When I look at your booth, I see people who are looking and acting like they really want to be there. I tell you, half the battle of staying toe-to-toe the entire show talking to potential buyers is simply looking like you want to in a non-aggressive manner. Positive attitude. Number one, do they like to exhibit, and does it show? Dependable and accountable. If I've got them scheduled from 9 to 1 or from 9 to 5, they're going to be there. If I ask them to dress a certain way, they're going to dress that way. If I ask them to interact with at least 3 or 4 visitors on an average hour, they're going to make it happen. That's what I'm looking for. Number 3, they're a team player. One of the problems with a lot of salespeople is they are geographically assigned, so anybody who's in their territory, they'll pay attention to. If they're not, they don't want anything to do with them. You know, the golden rule has to be treat each visitor as if they were in your territory. Take a lead the way you would want to be given a lead. Team player. Professional. Courteous. Hello, hi, please, thank you. How are you doing? Energetic. They've got to be able to stand on their feet for as many hours as they're in the booth, put a smile on their face, keep an open body language, and be engaging. Number 6, they've got to be able to walk up to a stranger and go, hey, my name's Jefferson, and you are? So nice to meet you, Michael. Tell me, I noticed you were looking at our lasers. Tell me a little bit about your interest. They got to be able to at least walk up and make a connection with a stranger. Number 6. Number 7, they can't fear rejection. There are going to be times when they need to work the perimeter of the booth. They need to stand, open body, put a smile on their face, and try to get people to stop. They can't be afraid to do that. If they are, they're going to struggle in your booth. Number 8, write this down. It's not what you tell, it's what you ask. They've got to be an effective questioner. That means they know what questions need to be asked. They know how to ask those questions in a conversational manner that encourages the visitor to participate in the conversation. You've got to be an effective questioner. They've also got to be a good listener. They listen with their eyes and their ears. They listen to understand, not just respond. They take notes. They use the lead form. They can play things back. They can paraphrase. They can restate what people told them. So they got to be a good listener. Knowledgeable. They have got to know your products, your services, the market, the competition, the applications, the features, the benefits, the top questions that you get hit with over and over and over again. So they got to be knowledgeable. Number 11, they've got to be able to communicate concisely. Remember, information overload is the enemy at a show. Less is more. The visitor doesn't have the bandwidth or retention ability to take in 17 minutes of content. So they got to be able to make those points quick and concise in a way that the visitor goes, I get that. That's relevant to me. That's important to me. And finally, they've got to understand that the real outcome of an in-booth interaction is the visitor committing to taking a visible next action step. So they've got to understand, they got to know when to get out of interactions, and they've got to know how to get the visitor to commit to taking that next step. 12 attributes. Give me booth staffers that line up on the majority of these. You'll be giving me a world-class booth staff. Give me booth staffers that are weak in 3 or more of these areas. You've got a staffing problem that you're going to have to deal with. If you don't, it's going to limit the results you get from shows. So, how do we improve staff performance? Okay? Number 1, I think you should evaluate your current exhibit staff. I think you should take each person that's going to or has exhibited and rate them on these attributes. Okay? I suggest having the staffer rate themselves on a 1 to 5. A 5, very effective. A 1, ineffective. And then to get some objectivity, have their manager or direct report rate them. And then if you're the exhibits manager and you've seen them in action and you're watching them at shows, you rate them. Okay? And then so what I'm saying is that if as a team or an individual they score low in 3 or more of these areas, you've got to compensate for these deficiencies. Now, if you're interested in doing this, I will email you right after today's webinar a free evaluation form that you can copy and circulate to your entire team. It has the attributes, it's got the questions. You'll find this as a very valuable tool. We normally sell the staff evaluation tool, but it's free for everybody who's logged into this webinar today. Just drop me an email, jefferson@tradeshowturnaround.com. Be happy to send it to you. Okay, so you start by rating your current staff, seeing strengths and weaknesses, and trying to fill those gaps, okay? Then, okay, the next thing you do is look around departments in your company. Sometimes, you know, if you don't have it in your core staff, you might find it other departments in your company. Customer service people make great booth staffers. Obviously having marketing, sometimes administrative staff. I have a company who went into their warehouse and literally picked people who matched up on some of the attributes, trained them on the other, and built what they called a trade show team. People that don't get the privilege to go out and be in the exhibit. You want to talk about an excited, engaging, looking, acting like they want to be there, having a great time in the booth? Look at other departments in your company. So you can either score it and train it, find it other places in your department. In some cases, you can rent it. There are many good companies out there that will give you temporary booth staff, people who are very comfortable in the environment, comfortable engaging. They'll learn your story, your questions. They can play a meet, greet, qualify, and handoff role to help you improve your staff. So you got 3 different ways. Evaluate and train it, find it other departments, or rent it. Any one of those or any combination of those might make sense for you. Okay, so this would be a good moment if any questions have flashed into your mind so far on this topic of exhibit staffing. You'll see the question queue. Just type your question, press send, and I'll take a look at that as I'm moving forward here. All right. So let's get into staff preparation, some specific things that we can do to prepare them. Number 1, the right number of people in the booth. The staffing rule of thumb is 50 square feet per exhibit staffer. You got a 10 by 10 booth, you got 5 of your staffers in it, you got a problem. Too many staff, no room for who? The visitors. Next, a good mix. Don't just put all salespeople in your booth. Obviously, you need salespeople, but as I mentioned, customer service, product managers, your engineers, your technical knowledge people, marketing, even have key executives showing up for a little booth duty. Have a nice mix of booth staffers. Third key, develop a show staffing and preparation like a playbook or a guide. Give them all the information about the show. Put in writing what the show goals are and what the staff roles are. Give them information about the exhibit, the presentation demonstrations, lead capture, anything and everything you want them to know. Put it into a playbook and get it out to your team weeks before the show. Number 4, I don't think anybody should be at the show just to be at the show. I think everybody should have objectives and be doing pre-work before they get to the show. So your sales team can be sitting down and targeting customers, prospects, suspects. They can be driving high-value interactions before the show. Your technical engineering product managers should be preparing FAQs for the product services, the frequently asked questions. They should be writing what we call 60-second messages and sharing them with the booth staff. They will typically be planning and in most cases doing any product demonstrations or training. Your marketing team should be obviously overseeing the program, planning market research, competitive research. They should be interacting with the media and all of that. And then your executives should be on purpose to get a certain number of high-level meetings with other people in the show. So give everybody assignment. You know, we don't show up just to show up. We show up to support business objectives and get value. Number 5, do at least 2 pre-show staff meetings. Now, if you're geographically dispersed. Your people are all over the country. You can do it like we are here today. Go to meeting, go to webinar, and I suggest that one happen 6 to 8 weeks before the show. And then do a live one. Best window for that, last setup day, mid to late afternoon, hour and a half, 3 hours. Make sure you put together a formal agenda for this pre-show meeting. And to let everybody know, this is not optional, kick it off with a key executive present. They know that the president or the VP of sales marketing is going to be there. Hint, hint, you better be there. Make this meeting fun, make it informative, make it educational, food, beverage, entertainment around it. Make this something that they really want to do. But again, 2 pre-show meetings. Next, firm booth duty schedule. If you're going to really win the game of exhibiting, you're going to have your booth properly covered every hour of the show. So as you think about the show, think about peaks and valleys, and make sure that you staff up during the peak, a little lighter during the valleys. I really feel strong about this, doing split shifts. Very few booth staffers have the ability to stay in the game 9 to 5 for 3 days in a row. So I like the 9 to 1 A team, the 1 to 5 B team. Very important you give them dedicated breaks. An AM, hey, if they're on a full day thing, they need an AM, a PM break, and a dedicated lunch break. And make sure that that compliance with the booth duty schedule is not optional, that if they cannot work their shift, it's their job to find someone to work their shift. You've got to cover your booth properly. Number 7, I've talked about this already, conduct exhibiting skills training. Okay, let's do a quick poll on training too. I'm curious in terms of has your company ever provided your booth staff with exhibit staff training? Okay, you'll see the poll coming up on your screen. Nope. Yeah, you have, and it was done by somebody in your staff. Yeah, you have done it, and you've actually brought in a professional exhibit staff trainer. Give you just a moment to complete the poll. All right, here's the results. Hey, remember earlier I said that 86% of booth staffers have never had an hour of skills training in how to do this? Isn't this interesting that on our webinar here today, that 80% of us say we've never provided any form of exhibit staff training? This webinar is a form of staff training. I would suggest that we're going to record this and get it up on the Corrosion website. I would suggest you make it a must-view for everybody on your team. Beyond that, I would suggest that you definitely hold the meetings and bring some of the elements of this into your training. And again, if anybody out here is interested in exhibit staff training, I do training, but I will also be glad to refer you to other professionals that do it. Your booth staff's going to make or break your success. All right, some quick hits on working the booth, some of the things that our booth staff really needs to pay attention to. Number 1, stand, smile, and act like you want to be there. We train a technique called SOS. Stand up, open body posture, put a smile on your face, SOS, look toward the aisle. I'm telling you, 8 out of 10 times you do that, somebody in the aisle will notice you. Keep your body language open to visitors and attendees in the aisle. Too often we look in the booth and we see people sitting down behind tables and chairs, standing with their back to the aisle, talking to one another. They don't really look like they are here to engage and talk to the attendees. Texting, eating, drinking, talking on the cell phone, talking with other booth staffers, no. Remember, hey, you might get one pass, and when the attendee looks in and sees these type of behaviors, they look away and they're often gone. When people come to the booth, greet them promptly. Hi, how you doing? Like you're glad to see them. Welcome them to your exhibit. Physically say the name. Hey, welcome to Competitive Edge. Meet the person that you're talking to. Don't read their name off the badge. And how you doing there, John? Well, John's first thought is, who is this guy? And when he realizes he doesn't know who you are, by calling him by his first name without ever having been introduced, you've lost a little bit of credibility. I think Dale Carnegie said, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Meet the person you're talking to. Ask them why they're visiting your booth. Ask them what they're hoping to learn, what they were looking to learn or see or do. When it comes time to talk products, keep it brief. A good presentation will say all that should be said, but not all that could be said. You know, sometimes the best question you can ask is say, hey, there's so much I could tell you about my corrosion protection system. Let me ask you, what are the 2 or 3 most important things that you want to know or learn here today? I tell you, when the visitor answers that question, not only do you know exactly what to present to, but they've further qualified themselves too. Take notes. I tell you, the worst thing you can do in the booth is have a really great conversation, ask great questions, the visitor spilling out their needs, their problems, their project, their challenges, and your booth staff stands there and goes, uh-huh, yeah, take notes. It is a very smart thing to do. It tells the visitor that you're listening. It tells the visitor that what they're saying to you is important. And most importantly, it's going to help your booth staff capture and follow up. Always suggest a next action. And when you do, ask the visitor for agreement. Typically, I'll close an interaction in the booth with something like this. I'll go, hey, David, based on what you've heard so far, does this sound like it might be worth taking a closer look at? Yeah, it sure does. Great. Why don't we go ahead and set up a site visit to come out and take a look at your current process? See what I did there? I tested on that he or she was legitimately interested in. I suggested a next action step, and then I'm asking for an agreement on the next step. 8 really powerful tips here. Okay? Number 8, at the end of the day, don't let everybody scatter like bugs. Okay? Tell your booth staff that if the show is 9 to 5, booth duty starts minimally at 8:40 and ends minimally at 5:20. Big mistake I see. You know, we're on the show floor. It's near the end of the day. Go by a lot of booths. Staffers have already head for the door. You know, some of the most powerful buyers purposefully walk the show floors late in the day and toward the back end of the show. And when I've asked them why they do that, I've heard 2 things. They said, number 1, we can tell who the third mile companies are, those who stay. And unfortunately, some of them said we feel like we have advantage over exhibitors at that point. But the bottom line is stay in your booth. Do not leave your booth unstaffed. Do not leave early. Do not turn down early. Your end of shift or your end of day quick recap meeting in the booth is priceless. Go over everything. Hey, what was our lead goal for today? How many did you get? How many did you get? How many did you get? How was the quality of those? What worked in our booth today? What did we do really well that we need to build upon tomorrow? And where were the problems? What were the bottlenecks? I really like having a little quick, like a MVP staffer of the day and little contests in place to keep everybody dialed in and excited and really wanting to play the game. Okay, and then number 9, shortly after the show, do like a staff and stakeholder survey, asking questions about, you know, do you feel this was the right show? Why? What did you think of our exhibit? Do you felt like we had the right people? Were our products? Just ask them anything and everything you want to know. Get feedback from the staff. And depending on the size of your company, there's a lot of variables. It could be in writing. It could be verbal. And if you really want to get open, candid feedback, consider making the survey anonymous, that they don't have to give their physical answers, okay? So 9 key steps to help you prepare your staff, okay? So we've covered a lot of ground in just 40 minutes here. Let me hit the high notes, open this up for questions, and then I'll let you get ready to send a world-class booth staff to Corrosion. Number 1, your staff makes or breaks it. Trade shows are about face. The market will make judgments about your company based on their interactions with your people. Okay, they're going to make judgments. Best people forward needs to be the strategy. I shared with you the attributes and offered you a complimentary tool, and I've given you some really good skills for preparing and helping them be effective. Don't just let people show up and wing it. Okay, make sure that somebody's taking control of exhibit staff selection, preparation, motivation, observation, and coaching. Training, share with them how the environment is different and give them the skills of how to open a conversation, how to get out of a conversation, what questions to ask, how to concisely and persuasively present your company messaging and your product messaging, how to ask for and get commitments from the visitor, how to capture better leads. And if you will do these things, you will be in the top 14% of exhibitors, those whose booth staff is professionally trained and ready to go in and put your company's best foot forward. Okay, so I've covered a lot of ground here. I'm going to open this up for Q&A. I'm going to take a peek in the queue. And while I'm looking at the queue, Jackie, David with NACE, if you're still online with me, if there's any final comments or anything you'd like to share with the exhibitors.
Sure, I would. Am I online? Can you hear me?
Yes, Jackie.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to thank all the exhibitors for attending again today. And also, remember, we're going to have this posted on the website, so go to the website, listen to it, share it with your colleagues. I think it's a great webinar to share.
All right, thank you, Jackie. We've got a few questions coming in here. The first question is about what's my feeling on staff uniforms or apparel. That's a really good question. The upside of having branded staff apparel, whether it is polo shirts, golf shirts with logos, or whether it's more formal, the upside is that it identifies you as a booth staffer. It reinforces the company branding. You look like a team. You look professional. And those are all good things. The downside is that if you have everybody wearing like red shirts and you have too many staff in the booth and there's no visitors in your booth, you can kind of look like the gang. My thought is you'll never go wrong with conservative business attire, but you do want to be quickly and easily identified as a booth staffer. So having something that identifies, whether it is your clothing, whether it is a custom button or a badge, whether it is a certain tie or scarf or something, I think it's a really smart thing to do. Okay, so staff apparel, be approachable, look the part, and be professional. Next question. What would be a couple good starter questions to ask visitors? Well, there's really only two engaging scenarios in a booth. Number one, the visitor walks up and into your booth. So when they walk up and into your booth, if they haven't landed on anything in your booth, then you might want to just ask them, hey, what brings you by? If you notice that they're looking at, you've walked up, you've got a product demonstration display, they're looking at it, you might ask, I noticed you were looking at our, whatever the name of your product is, tell me a little bit about your interest. So two great questions. What brings you by? I noticed you were looking at, tell me a little bit about your interest. Now, the other scenario is they haven't stopped at your booth They're kind of in the aisles. So what you do in that scenario is you stand up, make sure you're standing in an open body posture, put a smile on your face, and look toward somebody. Then as you look toward them, you slowly look away, give them a moment to process your booth, and in their mind they're going to ask, what do you do, and am I interested? And then you can circle back and reconnect, look at them, and maybe ask them, hey, what were you hoping to learn at the show? So you could take a broader type, what were some of the solutions or problems you were looking for answers to? More of a broad, open-ended question to get them talking. Okay, we got another question in the queue. This is a good one. How do I get out of the wrong conversations? People come up to me and they're talking to me and they go on and on and on, and I just can't get out of this. How do I do that? Well, the simplest and easiest way to do that, as soon as there's a break in the conversation, they pause for a moment, just thank them for stopping by. Just say, hey, you know what? I've really enjoyed talking with you. I appreciate you stopping by. Feel free to take a look around or enjoy the show, and then step back. Create space. Step away. Okay, so some pretty good questions there in the queue. I'm not seeing any other questions. I believe we are out of time. So, hey, it's not what you heard. It's what you do. Corrosion Expo is an incredible sales, marketing, and customer relationship management opportunity. If you'll use what you learned in this webinar and you'll go to the Exhibitor Success and ROI Center and check out the other content, from the articles to the Ask the Trade Show Expert to the marketing webinar to the Exhibitor Invites program, I can close this webinar not by wishing you a successful corrosion. I will guarantee that you will have a much more productive corrosion. So with that, on behalf of everyone at NACE, here at my company, Competitive Edge, I want to thank you for logging in, and go get them. Use what you learn. Have a wonderful Corrosion Expo. We will see you at the show very soon. Thanks for logging in, everybody.